and welcome to the Cultivating Calmness Podcast. My name is Kaela Vance, and today I want to talk a little bit about anxiety and change. And today we are in the middle of May, we've passed the middle of May. So we are halfway through May. I cannot believe it. And all the things that need to be done this month. And some of you may be experiencing this. I actually recently heard it called Maycember in relation to Mother's Day and how, everything seems to be happening in May. And I don't know that I've really recognized that as much before, but this year I definitely did, along with many other people, where it just seems like, if you have kids in school, especially whether your kids are graduating or if it's just kids in elementary school, but everything's due, there's a new project, it seems, or some kind of new presentation or performance for your kids, or there's graduation. And especially for parents out there who have kids who are graduating, it definitely, you have all the graduation parties, not only for your child, but for other children, and all of the things surrounding graduation that are coming up. So it just seems like there's a lot going on. And so this can be a time of year where you can experience a lot of anxiety because of just those unknowns. But, what really is anxiety? Anxiety is really, when we think about it, is those feelings of fear and dread, or the unknown. I often talk about my clients about anxiety just being the idea of unknown. And there's lots of things that are unknown. And so some people become very nervous, worried, anxious about those unknowns. And usually anxiety is future oriented, but we can have anxiety that is past oriented. But it is in relation to maybe how it's affecting you today. Did I do the right thing? Should I have done something different? What if I didn't pass that test, right? Those are all things that have happened in the past, and we're worried about what's going to happen here in the future, or what's going to come up because of those past decisions or experiences. Future worries where you haven't made a decision yet. Again, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen at the party? What happened? What if I don't pass this test? What if I don't say the right thing? What are they going to say on the phone? What's going to happen if I am in that crowd of people and I don't know what to do and where to go? Those are where I say past and future. But if we're being mindful and we're being present in the moment and we're practicing some mindfulness skills, we're less likely to experience that anxiety. So I just wanted to talk some about anxiety. And for me, the idea of change can be hard, and I can experience anxiety. And I would say right now I'm maybe experiencing some of that along with some of you, just because in my life and my practice at 𝗘𝘃𝗃𝘁𝗃 Wellness, we are working on expanding and going from my singular office and just me to a bigger space, and hoping to continue to spread into the wellness focus as I do on my own, but now hopefully being able to do that with other clinicians in a bigger space, but also now offering some other services to my clients and potentially new clients that are not just therapy, but in the wellness realm. So big things are happening with me in my space, and that can cause some anxiety. There's excitement. I'm excited for this. I want this. I want to go there. But all that nervousness that comes along with it, like, am I making the right decision? What if this doesn't work out? How am I going to go about making these things happen? And what do I do? And how do I do it? And trying to get it all done. And, that decision where they're like, do we just do a slower pace, trickle in little bit by little bit, or do we try to just do it all at once and then figure it out? Or, all these decisions have to be made in business world, and, it obviously mixes with personal life and finances and, all kinds of other decisions. So I am lucky that I have a very thoughtful and helpful and knowledgeable husband, and he does all the things that are not in my wheelhouse and not my strength. So I am very grateful for him. Because if I didn't have him, I don't know that I would be necessarily taking these steps. It can be very daunting. It can be a very daunting task to go out on your own and to do different things and do new things. So, talk about anxiety. I think my anxiety would be a lot higher if I didn't have him. So for me, that's what's maybe causing or is causing some anxiety in my world right now. But to talk a little bit about just anxiety in general, we've talked a little bit about, like I just said, what it kind of is in a very generic and simple terms. In therapy world, we have all kinds of diagnoses for anxiety. We have generalized anxiety disorder, just, a regular anxiety with no specific cause or understanding. We have, there's phobias and agoraphobia and, social anxiety. And then we have diagnoses that have some anxiety to them, but aren't necessarily considered an anxiety disorder, like obsessive compulsive disorder and a PTSD. Those things all have anxiety features. So anxiety can cover a wide range of presentations, let's say. And in my practice, I tend to focus less on the diagnosis and more on, the treatment. How can we make it better? But also, given that I like to look at things from a holistic perspective, I want to know, where are these things coming from? What's going on in your body, in your system, that is causing you to feel the way that you're feeling. So a lot of times when we think about anxiety and we talk about anxiety from a medical perspective, you might hear the words or phrases like it's a chemical imbalance, or that it's genetic, or that you'll always be this way, or once you're on medication, you're probably going to need the medication. I personally don't believe most of those things, like as a singular explanation. Do I believe that those things can play a role in your anxiety and your treatment? Yes. Do I think that that is the end all be all? No, I do not. So if you are one of those people and you have anxiety and you've been told these things, I just want you to know that there's hope, that there's other options, that there's other things to look into and other things to consider when it comes to your anxiety. And maybe if you try some of these things, you may or may not notice some changes in the experiences that you're having in your body. One of the biggest things that I don't think most people recognize, and I have been there myself, is recognizing what is happening in your body when you think you're experiencing anxiety. So I know that there was a point in time where there are things that would happen in my body that I wasn't necessarily connecting to anxiety. I just thought maybe it was a thing that I did. And the more you get to know your body and the more you pay attention and you, I guess, are mindful of what's happening, the more you may notice certain things shifting, changing, ebbing, flowing with the changes that you're making and the things that you're doing. So some of those things, let's see. So when we're thinking about our body and the things that we're doing that can affect our anxiety, thinking about the things that you're eating. So caffeine and anxiety can go hand in hand, and they can go against each other. They can butt heads. So I know I like coffee, especially when I'm tired. That's a whole other topic. And I know I've talked about sleep before. And so caffeine can have its benefits. It can also have its downsides. So if you are somebody that is prone to anxiety, having a lot of caffeine is probably not going to benefit you. I know personally, so when I have coffee and I want certain drinks, I need to make sure that I'm asking that the coffee or drink that I'm getting does not contain espresso. Why? Well, when it does, I notice those feelings in my body that makes it feel like I am having like a panic attack. Like my heart is racing. I just feel really jittery, and I don't like it. And I know like I'm not anxious, so it must be the coffee. And I've learned that over time. So I know that that is not something that I want for me. And it might not be something that you want for you. Maybe you don't notice that happening in your body. I know I have. So I know I try to stay away from that, but I know, I can feel that sometimes without the espresso in it. So as you make changes, you may notice that certain things affect you differently. So you may consider, if you have anxiety, to cut out coffee or caffeine. I know that's a hard ask, and it may take some time to get used to, or maybe you cut down on how much caffeine you're having, or when you're having it. Maybe give a little trial and error, maybe mix a little half and half, decaf and regular. But switching up other habits may help with if you're feeling tired and that's why you're having caffeine, maybe trying some of these other things that I'm going to mention might help you get away from the coffee. So caffeine, you might want to avoid caffeine. And I talked about like allergies or foods that you're eating. So, I would recommend potentially getting tested. Getting like a food allergy test. There are different versions out there, like 𝗏𝘅𝗺𝗏 has a food allergy test. The Wellness Way has an allergy test. What you're looking for is you want to test your IgG and your IgE allergies. Your IgE allergies are the ones that are those anaphylactic allergies that people typically need an EpiPen for. And then your IgGs are those allergies that might not show immediately. And so you might not realize that you have an allergy to something because you're not having a split reaction to something that you're eating, right? Like your tongue gets tingly, or your mouth swells, or your throat swells, or you get hives, right? Those are some of those more visible reactions and things that let us really know that we're having a reaction to something. But other reactions can take not, just days, but sometimes weeks to show up. So like if I ate a banana today, I may not know that my body is reacting to it for several weeks. So how would I know that I'm having a reaction to it, especially if it's something that I eat every single day? If it's something I eat every single day, how am I going to know that I'm having a reaction to it? I can personally say that there are things that I recognize that my body has reactions to now just from eliminating them or decreasing my use of them. And then I may have them occasionally and I can feel it right away. So soda pop, some of you may call it, is something that I notice like right away. I will feel it, especially if it's, more of the common brands, like Coke or Pepsi, something like that, versus some of the more natural, healthy brands where they have less of the food coloring and less of the additives. And it's more of like just cane sugar and some natural flavorings. Now you can go into the realm of like the poppy and the kombucha, and those I tend to not have a reaction to. So it's definitely the sodas, and I can take a few sips and like notice right away that feeling that I have in my body. So I didn't used to do that, but I used to drink it all the time. So when I drank it all the time, I didn't notice what it was doing to my body. Now when I don't have it so often and I drink it, I notice. Dairy is the same way for me. I'm trying to think of something else. I know there's something else that I've recently had where I noticed it. But those are the two common ones that I can think of. So a food allergy test will tell you what you're eating that maybe you don't really notice is wreaking havoc in your body, but it is. So not only will it have an effect on like your physical like ailments, like what's happening, like rashes, numbness, tingling, inflammation. So inflammation is a very generic term, and some people think about that as like joints or bloating, but inflammation could also cause inflammation up here in your brain. And that is an area where like we may experience some of that anxiety, difficulty thinking and processing and concentrating. So food can have a big effect on the way we think and the way we feel. And that's going to affect not just your anxiety, but if you have depression or if you have PTSD or trauma, if we aren't controlling the things that we eat, it can be just causing that domino effect of symptoms to continue. So changing your eating isn't necessarily going to make your trauma disappear, like it's not, but it's going to make you able to handle what's going on a lot better. So that's why I say consider getting a food allergy test. Those skin prick tests, I don't know that those are as effective as getting a blood test where you like prick your finger and you put on a little card, or they take a vial from your arm and they, run a test with that. Those are probably going to be more effective than doing like the skin prick test that they typically do for the seasonal allergies, which many of you may be experiencing right now. So some other things you may consider is like eliminating those highly inflammatory foods. So I know I just said allergy tested, so that's going to cause inflammation in your body if you're eating things that are causing inflammation in your system, because each of you is unique. So what is bothering my system may not bother your system, but some very common triggers for most people are sugar. So sugar is not good, and I know it's difficult. So, I'm on the path of healing from sugar, and sometimes I find that it's easy and sometimes it is hard to get rid of sugar. And so I actually am considering doing another, like a sugar detox, because I could get into bad habits, and I can recognize that it's not good, and healing from that is a process. It takes time, it takes effort. So I will be doing that right along with you. I know and I understand. But sugar, very high inflammatory food, if you'll call it. Gluten, getting rid of gluten, highly inflammatory. Dairy, highly inflammatory. So those three things are things that you could eliminate that could be very helpful for your system, and not just eliminating for a week, right? It took time for your body to get the way it is. It's going to take time to get those things, flush those things out of your system and start to heal your body and get it back to homeostasis, back to the place that it wants to be at. So for anxiety, consider eliminating highly inflammatory foods, especially if you already know that you're allergic to something. Continuing to eat it isn't going to do you well. I know it's good. I know it's delicious. I know that's why the pull is there to have it. But if you can, and you have anxiety and you've been told that, there's no cure, there is, and there can be. I can't say that doing these things is going to take that away, but it's definitely not going to help you to continue trying to eat those foods that are causing problems. So if you want to, I'd consider, trying to eliminate those things. Yes, it'll be hard. And maybe you start slow. Like, you don't just like, oh, tomorrow I'm getting rid of all those things. Like that would, that's cold turkey. That'll probably be hard. But what I've done in the past is just start to eliminate, right? So maybe we eat a lot of pasta, and I might start to buy gluten-free pasta. And maybe you start to find some gluten-free bread, or even just healthier bread, bread that's maybe organic, bread that has less ingredients in it, bread that's maybe coming from a bakery versus a box store. Those are some simple, like stepping ladder changes that you can make, versus going all in all at once, which, can have its effectiveness and can be very helpful for you. Just like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, go all in. Yeah, that's probably going to be easy. But if you're somebody that would be very difficult for you and you're more likely to, quit because it's hard, try doing step by step. Try making those changes a little bit at a time and work your way up to them if that would be easier. But just know that it's going to take longer for those symptoms, those anxiety symptoms, to kind of taper off as well. So you decide, you pick, it's kind of like pick your heart, and decide what may work best for you. So eliminating some of those things, because you're going to heal your gut, which is like your second brain, as some say. I say it's kind of like your first brain, because everything you eat goes into your gut and that feeds your brain. So yeah, our brain controls everything, but really what we're eating and what we're giving ourselves is going to affect our brain chemistry. So starting there would be a good help for you. Another thing you may have, or you may go to your doctor, is to consider testing your thyroid, because if you have like hyperthyroid, and when I say testing, not just your TSH, but you want to get all your thyroid numbers checked. I think I can never remember. It's like 8 numbers. I'm not the expert on that, but I do know that it's more than just your TSH. It's your T4, your T3, your reverse T3 and reverse T4, and there's a couple other numbers to know as well when you're really getting your thyroid checked. So when I say get your thyroid checked, that's what I mean, not just one number, because that one number isn't going to give you an accurate picture of what's going on with your thyroid. But if you have hyperthyroid, it can influence whether you have anxiety or not. If you have low blood sugar, it can influence whether you have anxiety or not. Potentially, I'm not too sure, but I would think that if you're having trouble managing your sugar intake, having too much sugar could also affect your anxiety. Having low iron and anemia can affect your anxiety as well, because it's going to affect your heart rate and your jitteriness and, whether you're feeling like you're going to pass out or not. So these things would be at a minimum, worth getting checked out to see. It's just, as I've talked about before on here, getting your vitamin D and your magnesium checked, like those are going to have an effect on whether you're feeling depressed. They can also have an effect on whether you're feeling anxious. If you are deficient in necessary nutrients, it could have an effect on whether you're feeling anxious. Every person is different, so I can't say whether any of these things are affecting you. But that's where I feel that testing can be important, and knowing what's going on with you can be important. Potentially even getting tested, your genes tested, to know like what, if you carry certain genes, you carry certain mutations in your genes, the 𝗏𝘅𝗺𝗏 mutation, that's the one that's coming to mind right now, but there's numerous, gene mutations that can happen that can affect your anxiety, but can also affect the way that you intake nutrients, you process nutrients, hold on to them or expel them. So you're not just like taking all these nutrients, because sometimes you could just have really expensive pee, because your body isn't taking them in the way that it should, because of potential gene mutations. So you could look into getting some of those things tested, just to know what your body has going on inside and what you can do about it. So the more answers you have, the more knowledge you have, and the more power you have in taking control of what's going on inside your body. So treatment of anxiety from a medical perspective, therapy, I think, can be very helpful. There's the medication route, which is an option, especially if you're experiencing a very high level of anxiety. It may be helpful to be able to get on a medication to get you to a place where you can regulate. But those can be hard to come off of. And a lot of medical professionals will tell you that like you're going to be on it, for a long time. And that's because your body does get used to it. So if you try some of those other things that I mentioned, you may not need to get on anxiety medication. But if those things are going to take some time, getting on a medication could help you kind of get over the hump. But just be wary and be careful being on a medication, because what may give you a temporary or immediate fix could cause more long-term problems or difficulties for you, coming off of them, but also potential health risks and health problems. So it's definitely worth looking into for yourself. On the flip side, there are many herbs that you could take to help with anxiety and stress management. So I'm going to tell you what some of those are, and I encourage you to look into them or find a holistic practitioner to talk to you about some of them. A lot of these things you can find on a shelf at Whole Foods or the vitamin shop, or potentially your local grocery store. Some will carry some of these things. Some will not. There are many like herbal brands out there that carry products that have a mixture of some of these things in them. So, there's 𝗏𝘅𝗧𝗏, there's Mountain Rose Herbs, there's the Wellness Way, there's Roots to Remedies. Oh gosh, there's so many, and those are the ones that just come to mind right now. But many providers out there that have supplements that can offer you assistance in managing anxiety. But if you're taking those things and you're not doing anything else, just remember that those aren't going to solve the problem. We want to get to the root. We want to find out what's going on underneath. So, this is all aside from like trauma and life circumstances. So those are worth addressing in therapy or talking with someone and working through them and working on the skills to manage them. From a holistic perspective, we're talking about what can you do in addition to those therapies and those changes that are also going to have an effect on your anxiety. I like to tell my clients and you listeners that, I can do all the therapy in the world with you. We can talk all the coping skills. We can do the EMDR. We can do the processing, but I am not going to be able to change your hormones or your thyroid or your deficiencies. You have to do that. You have to put in the effort and the work and make those lifestyle changes that are also going to assist you with improving your life. So the therapy can help in addition to these things. So some herbs that can be very helpful, like ashwagandha is I'm losing the word. Ashwagandha is it'll come to me in a little bit. It's an herb that can help with managing stress. It's an adaptogen. That's the word. It's an adaptogenic herb. So it helps your body adapt to stress. So that is a common one in a lot of anxiety like mixtures where there's different herbs included. So ashwagandha is a common one. Magnesium, I've talked about magnesium before. So magnesium is great for managing stress, and there's different types of magnesium. So you want to look into the type of magnesium that may be best for you, especially if you're focused on anxiety. But if you have other stressors in your life, getting a magnesium supplement that has multiple types of magnesium in it will cover many more bases than just getting a singular type of magnesium. So that's another consideration for you. Chamomile. I grow chamomile. I've talked about chamomile in here. Chamomile is very soothing and calming. That's why there's chamomile tea. A lot of times people will drink chamomile at night, so it can help you get to sleep. It can help you relax. It helps to regulate your system. It also helps to heal your gut. So it helps to heal that gut lining and bring it back together. So if you're starting to eliminate things in your diet, your body's going to need healing. So chamomile is a good herb for that. St. John's wort is another good herb for anxiety, depression. However, that one you definitely want to look into. If you are on medication, you don't want to be taking St. John's wort. So definitely look into that. There are supplements that include St. John's wort in them and are labeled for anxiety. So you want to be very careful. And there may be other herbs that you also need to look at contraindications for medications. So these are just general thoughts on herbs that can be helpful for anxiety. You want to look into them. You don't just want to take them because I said so or anybody else said so. Look into what their contraindications are, how they may or may not be helpful for you before you take them. Consult a holistic practitioner or a functional medicine practitioner, someone along those lines, because they will have some of that knowledge as well. Skullcap, lemon balm, passion flower, lavender, motherwort, holy basil. These are all herbs that can assist in stress, anxiety, worry, and things of that nature. So you want to consider looking into them before trying them. Do some research, but those are all very common herbs that can assist with mood management and anxiety. So those are some things on the natural route that you can consider, along with some other changes, lifestyle changes to helping you manage anxiety. Other things to consider doing is like specific breathing exercises like 4-7-8 breathing, prayer, you thinking about your negative thoughts. Your negative thoughts affect the way you feel, affect the way you behave, and it's the cognitive triangle. Your thoughts affect your mood and your behaviors. So if you're thinking negatively, changing that will affect the way that you feel. It takes practice. It takes work. It's not just going to be a snap of the finger and I'm done and I've changed my thoughts. It is an active process, but if you find yourself thinking negatively about many different types of situations, it's going to have an effect on the way you feel. So getting therapy to help you work through that, or noticing and actively working to change those thoughts, will help your mood. So all these things go hand in hand. You can't necessarily just do one without some of the others. So doing one thing may help, but but is it going to solve the whole problem, your body as a whole? No. Exercise is important too. Didn't mention that anywhere today. So exercise is going to help you as well. So getting exercise, walking, even 10 minutes, getting outside, going somewhere to walk allows you to think and process and work through things and to de-stress. And just remember, I think anxiety is a liar. Anxiety lies to you. It tells you lies. So if you can remember that, remember to remind yourself that anxiety, that feeling that you're having is lying to you, and you got to do something about it to change the lie that's being told up here and in your body. Sometimes our bodies are in that fight or flight mode all the time, which isn't helpful. We want our bodies to go into fight or flight when necessary, when we see a bear, when a car is coming at us and, in the wrong lane or, anything like that. Like we want to jump into action, but we don't want to feel like we're in action all the time. So getting your body out of fight or flight, you can start by making some of those lifestyle changes, and those can definitely help in aiding in that process. Might not solve the problem, remember, but it can aid in that process. So I hope you found some of this helpful today. Feel free to, comment, let me know any questions you have or thoughts on this subject. I'd be happy to talk about it more. And I love talking about new things. So if you have a suggestion, or if you have any thoughts on something you'd like to hear about, please let me know. But thank you for joining me today, and I will talk to you again next week.